Good afternoon. On behalf of the Board of Education, I call to order our work session. Today is Tuesday, April the 8th. A special welcome to those joining us here in the auditorium, as well as those watching online. Special welcome to Commissioner Priola, Commissioner Thompson, Burlington City Council Member Ronnie Wall, and special guest. And our interim academic officer, Ms. Denise Morton, thank you for coming back and being with us. And retired former North Carolina House Representative, Representative Hardister is here with us today as well. So thank you for being with us. And of course, as always, our friends from the media. Board members, you've had an opportunity to review the agenda. Is there a motion to approve at this time?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 6-0. There is no business before the Board of Education this afternoon. I will turn the floor over to our superintendent, Dr. Fleming, for our first agenda item.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Chairman, members of the board. Good to see everybody. And I do want to welcome Dr. Denise Morton, our interim Chief Academic Officer. No stranger to ABSS. She served us for many years ago. I don't know if she wants me to tell you how many years ago, but I know I was a little younger then. But we do appreciate her stepping in for a time while we fill that critical role. This afternoon, we have a presentation from a company that I'm familiar with from previous district, Bus Patrol. And I'm going to have them come on up. Bus Patrol is a stop arm enforcement company for our school buses. I think beyond that, and I'll kind of save, I won't steal their thunder, let's put it that way. They also help school district with interior cameras, which goes along to school safety, and that's really what it's about, student safety. Really keeping our students safe from the morning when they get on the bus till they get off the bus in the afternoon, and everything that happens inside the bus. And so I will pass it over. Come on up, and then we'll have time at the end for questions as well.
All right, my first test is seeing if I could figure out the IT. So let's see. I think it's the middle button. Maybe. Ah, there we go. All right. Thank you so much for having me here, Dr. Fleming and board. I'm Steve Rendazzo, Chief Growth Officer of Bus Patrol America. We are the nation's top provider of a niche service called school bus stop arm camera safety services. And what we do is we work with communities all over the country. We have about 400 school districts that we work with around the country across 20 states. We're currently installed on about 35,000 school buses and counting. And what we do is we work with local school boards, local law enforcement agencies, sheriff's offices, county commissions, etc., to bring these school bus stop arm camera programs to life in communities across the country. And we were founded on the simple premise that we want to make the ride to and from school safer for all students. Right now, I think be fair to say that people are really distracted behind the wheel. People are texting and driving more than ever before. And really, our kids are quite safe, all things considered, when they're on the bus. So it's really been kind of come to be known that the most dangerous part of a student's day is actually getting on and off the school bus. The number of tragedies and close calls and even fatalities in some places, just one life lost is too many. So what we do is we work with communities all across the country. Just to name a few, we have places in the Northeast, like Long Island, New York, where I'm originally from. Places down south, like Hillsborough County, if you're familiar, that's Tampa, Florida, Miami-Dade, Florida, in the DC suburbs, places like Prince George's County and Montgomery County, Maryland. We have one program live thus far in Harnett County. It's the first program that came to be in the state of North Carolina. Virginia Beach just went live about a few months ago, and we're taking new programs live each and every day. We're having a little bit of a moment because there's sort of a student safety buzz kind of taking hold across the country. I'm going to play this for about 30 seconds, but I'll share the clip with everyone after the fact. But we were featured recently on the Today Show because what we love to do on top of being your community safety partners, we love to go into the classroom and make sure kids play a role as well, and just making sure they're looking both ways, watching out for the danger zone. So we were recently recognized during the Today Show during National School Bus Safety Week. I'll play this for about 30 seconds.
We're back 7:39 with a timely in-depth today during National School Bus Safety Week.
This morning we are shining a light on a high-tech program that helps police crack down on driving that could put children at risk.
Right? Jesse Kirsch, NBC's Jesse Kirsch, he actually got a first-hand look. Jesse, good morning.
Hey guys, good morning. If you're driving on the roads, you should know these rules. When a school bus's yellow lights are flashing, that's the time to slow down. And when you see those red lights come on with the stop arm extended, you must stop in both directions. Every day, though, people are breaking these rules. It might surprise you how many, and the consequences can be deadly.
The videos are absolutely shocking. Again and again, children almost getting hit by cars, with drivers illegally passing stopped school buses. This one in South Florida especially scary. Watch this student crossing the street as a driver just keeps going. The student thankfully reacting in time.
Does it surprise you, or is it what you expected? No, I was shocked.
So it's about a 3.5-minute clip. So again, just in the interest of time, I want to make sure that I can just get really quickly through the presentation. This is something that we see on all different types of roads: single-lane roads, multi-lane roads, roads with different road infrastructure and architectural types, but I'll just play one or two more of these clips. But this is just another day in the life being the administrator of this program all across the country. You would be shocked to see the things that cars do. Like, you could actually see good actors like this car trying to block this truck from doing the wrong thing. And this program, again, being deployed on so many school buses around the country, meaningfully changes driving behavior in communities. Demonstrated. We have the numbers and the data to prove it. This is estimated to happen about 45 million times a year. Over the course of the last few years, we've seen a flurry of state legislation permitting the use of these school bus stop arm cameras. It's actually legal in 29 states. We are seeing this issue come up over and over again in North Carolina. I've seen a number of usually when I prepare for some of these presentations, just do a quick Google search. It is top of mind in the news media in counties around North Carolina. And the way the technology works, again, is that Bus Patrol, at its expense, we outfit all of the school buses in the community with these school bus stop arm cameras that are very, very highly sophisticated at detecting these stop arm violations. And it's a turnkey end-to-end program where we actually serve as more or less the cameraman. We are not the ones issuing the citation. What we do is we have an automated system that's powered by AI. Our AI engine, her name is Ava, and she's about 30% more accurate than the trained human eye at detecting stop arm violations. And then, after Ava takes that sort of first pass, because Ava understands the difference between parked cars, cars in motion, bikes, animals, restaurant signs, but then we work hand in hand with law enforcement. So we actually have already, before this meeting, had a preliminary meeting with the sheriff's office, and I quote, the sheriff said this, he thought this was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Direct quote from the sheriff. But so the way it works is Ava takes that first pass at detecting the violation. We then, at Bus Patrol, to save the sheriff a little bit of time, we have 2 levels of human level review that check Ava's work. think of it as like pre-screening the evidence, and then that video evidence file that gets created gets transmitted electronically to the sheriff's office, and then they log into a portal, and then it's almost like a better experience than being there in person, because they have all of the different angles from the bus, the side of the bus, the front of the bus, the back of the bus, and then only a sworn law enforcement officer makes that independent decision about whether to issue a citation. But then Bus Patrol just takes care of all the ministerial work on the back end. So we like mail the citation, we help get it paid on behalf of the school district. If in the event someone wants to request a hearing, we manage the paperwork and help schedule people for their hearing. So it's really a one-stop shop where we front all of the capital to outfit all the buses. We administer the program as your agent, ministerially on your behalf, and all of the correct checks and balances are in place to make sure that, again, law enforcement is really the sole determiner of who's cited and who isn't. And then Bus Patrol is able to be paid because North Carolina state law, your state constitution notes that all of the traffic fines go to public schools. So you are able to pay us more or less a subscription fee that comes out of those paid citations. So the program, believe it or not, does not cost the community district budget a penny. It is a zero upfront cost, what we like to call, it's a violator-funded program. If you break the law, you pay into the program. If you don't break the law, the taxpayers who are funding the school district do not pay a penny into the program. So Bus Patrol handles the entirety of the administration of the program on your behalf. We have a payment portal. We design the citation with the sheriff's office. The citation has multiple pictures of the car kind of before the bus and then in the act of breaking the law. There's also a video link on the citation where you can go and you have access to the same video evidence that the law enforcement agency had to hold you accountable. So there's a total transparency about the video footage. We have a one-stop shop where people can pay online and resolve their citation then and there. We also have multiple ways to pay. You could have check, money order, by phone, et cetera. So multiple accessible ways to dispose of your citation. I'll just skip over, but we have a wonderful court management platform that we've been working with a lot of different counties. But the way the program works, this was actually a law that was passed many years ago in the state legislature. So it's the school district's program primarily. You select the vendor. And then we, through a series of MOUs with the county and with the sheriff's office, that's what effectuates the program. So there would be a step, and we've had a couple of conversations with county commissioners about this. The county would have to pass an ordinance. The ordinance is what allows for the program to exist within the county. But then it mainly thereafter becomes the school district's program. And then we do that MOU with the sheriff's office to perform the enforcement responsibilities. And then basically that citation revenue can be utilized through that MOU with the sheriff's office to make even them whole. So no one is really going truly out of pocket in a sense, because let's just say the sheriff needs to spend 10 hours a month doing the sort of enforcement responsibilities. We can take a portion of the paid fines and make the sheriff whole every month. So it's really like, again, this violator-funded proposition in every sense of the term. We provide wonderful reporting and advanced data analytics, because I am not sitting here saying that, or standing here saying that the violations through the Bus Patrol program alone will go to zero. It takes a community-wide concerted effort to continue to drive down, no pun intended, the dangerous driving behavior. So what we love, and I'm kind of like a public policy data nerd at heart, is we provide you with heat maps around where the most ticketed locations are, the hot spots in the community, so that the community can take it upon itself to have more targeted interventions. Think about a world where we can know where the top 10, top 20, top 30 most dangerous bus stops are in the entire county. And then we can work with law enforcement to send an actual officer there, or we could have targeted education, or we can work with the school transportation team about maybe even moving some bus stops or relocating them to safer locations. All of the power of the enforcement that occurs through the ticketing platform can be amplified through more targeted interventions that come from the data. What we do on top of the stop arm camera programs, and again, this is no extra cost, is we outfit all of your buses with really, really high-end interior cameras, as Dr. Fleming was alluding to. So this has sort of become, then we more or less become a one-stop shop for video solutions on the bus. And you know, there's a lot of reasons to do it. I mean, there are things that happen on the bus every day, fights, bullying, other incidents. But just from a logistical and cost perspective, the school district can get out of the business of ever having to buy interior cameras or service them or worry about warranties ever again. So this is, other than the practical uses of the interior cameras for good, for safety, we just feel like, why pay for interior cameras that are inferior when you can get them for free, that are higher quality, that are funded by the people who would break the law and endanger kids on our roads? So that's sort of a little bit of the bus patrol unique value proposition that many, many communities are taking us up on around the state and around the country. I'll add that the interior cameras come with cellular connectivity and live view and on-demand video retrieval. So the example I like to give is, you know, if Johnny gets into a fight on the bus and his mom calls the principal, think about a world where the school doesn't even have to dispatch a tech to go pull off the DVR anymore. The transportation director for the school district can simply log into the bus patrol portal and request that video off the bus momentarily. So the way that we're even servicing the video solution needs for the school district is dramatically transformed. We also install a panic button on every bus, knock on wood, that God forbid it would never need to be used, but in this world we live in today, there are times when emergencies happen on the bus. Bus driver can press the button, it sends a text message with a live view link to a designated official where that's timestamped, so you can respond to emergencies on the bus a lot quicker. And I'll just end with two other things. It's think of the bus patrol program as a total one-stop shop where we are kind of waiting on the school district as your administrator of this program, hand and foot. We have bus experts, we have finance experts, we have training experts, we have law enforcement experts who work with all the different stakeholders within the community to make sure your program is perfect each and every day. Our mission, again, to make the ride to and from school safer is really grounded in a sense of student safety equity. There are communities around the country, I wouldn't recommend this, but that put the buses on, the cameras on just a handful of buses. We don't recommend that approach because just don't want to be in the position of ever telling parents like your kid's safety was less prioritized than these other kids. So that's actually the secret sauce to changing driver behavior, is sending a clear message to the community that every kid's safety is equally important to this district, and sending a clear message, frankly, to drivers that anywhere in Alamance County, if you break the law and you endanger a kid's life around a school bus, you will equally be held accountable. That's the secret sauce to actually changing the mindset of drivers who are egregiously passing the school bus just because an officer doesn't happen to be stationed nearby. Last thing I'll say is we work really, really hard working with the school district on extended public education and community outreach. And I don't believe, and I'm a former public official originally from New York, I don't believe that you should just turn a light switch on and start ticketing people. You have to give the community a heads up. You have to do community meetings, parent letters, public service announcements, warning periods. So that's what we do as our standard, is for the first 30 days, no one gets a real citation. We give warning citations out to give the community a heads up, where we announce very clearly the program will go live on this date. We provide the school district with a wonderful communications kit that can be customized. Again, parent letters, robocall scripts, stuff for the school website. And then again, we just love to come into the classroom if you'll have us. So usually every October is National School Bus Safety Week. if we're so fortunate to be your partner, we'd love to be able to come in. We do backpack giveaways, school supply giveaways, and then a whole curriculum around the what we call the danger zone. That's age appropriate for many different ages. So really try to be a community safety partner, not just like a typical government vendor. So turnkey end to end, 100% violator funded, and then the proudest statistic of all is that across all of our program, again, the data nerd in me really loves this. We've been in business since 2017. Over 90% of folks who get one citation from a bus patrol program never break the law again. So it's the lowest repeat offender or recidivism rate in the entire photo enforcement industry. And I do believe Bus Patrol has that secret sauce to, again, not bring the violations down to zero, but to make a meaningful change in direction of dangerous driver behavior in communities all across the country. So with that, I don't know if I went a little over, but happy to take any questions. Thank you for having me, and it would be a pleasure to be your partner one day.
Thank you so much for being here and sharing this program with us. Questions from board members? Yes, Mr. Engel.
What's the price of a ticket?
So it's set by state law. It's $400. It's a pretty hefty fine, but that is something that is set at the state level by the state legislature.
All right. How do you go about collecting when they refuse to pay?
Good question. So different states have different payment sort of incentives or teeth in the legislation. So the North Carolina law, and again, this was adopted by the state legislature many years ago. There's a provision where if you don't pay, it is a civil citation because the ticket does go to the registered owner of the vehicle. We're not doing facial recognition. So it functions a lot like a parking ticket. There's no points on your license. Your insurance rates don't go up. But if you don't pay, you can be entered into more or less a default judgment where that can be sent to the motor vehicle department, and you could actually get a registration hold on your car. So if you go to renew your registration in the following year, it's kind of like before you can do that, there's a bit of a hold because you have to pay your photo enforcement ticket.
So in other words, all this is already policy, whereas...
already state policy.
Whereas if they refuse to pay the ticket, then there can be a hold placed on their getting their car. Okay.
Correct.
Well, that's good. The local law enforcement agencies in the county, how are you
Yes.
going to go about tying them into the sheriff's office that's receiving the information?
Yeah, so from a technology perspective, Bus Patrol, we work with school districts in Pennsylvania that have 4 police departments that patrol different roads within the community. So that's like walking in the park for Bus Patrol. The thing about especially these more southern states, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, you have like countywide law enforcement, but then you also have municipal law enforcement. But technically speaking, the county sheriff can write a traffic ticket on every road within the county, even if it's in a city, even if it's in a municipality that has a local police department. So the answer is really, I would recommend a meeting of the minds with all the municipalities and saying, let the county sheriff do this program for the entire county, just a little easier. In the event that there's people who say, no, we want to do the enforcement in this city within the county or this municipality within the county, Bus Patrol can easily just help the community enter into a series of MOUs where we can just, whenever the violation occurs within the jurisdictional boundaries of like a small city within the county, we can transport those video evidence packages to that law enforcement agency to review those and make those decisions.
I would strongly encourage you to get with the sheriff. They have a meeting with the police chiefs and the sheriff every month. They used to, I'm sure they still do.
Sure.
And just maybe do a presentation with them. That would probably be helpful to you.
Happy to.
Mr. Engel, just to follow up on that, we have had some conversations. I think the intention is that we would have a deputy from the sheriff's office that would review all Alamance County tickets.
Sounds great. Tell me about the $400. How's that broken up? Where does that money go?
Yeah, so lucky for the school district, by the North Carolina state constitution, it all goes to the school district. That's set in the state constitution that all the traffic fines that get imposed in the state are to benefit public schools. So but the state law that was kind of overlaid onto that many years ago says that the school district you can enter into cost-sharing arrangements that help to effectuate the program. So that's when I was talking about those series of MOUs. So technically speaking, when someone pays their $400, legally that is the school district's money. But if you want to effectuate the program, you can have MOUs that say, well, if the Alamance County Sheriff is going to spend time performing the enforcement duties, we enter into an MOU that says, maybe sets like a rate, an hourly rate or something like that. I'm kind of making up numbers a little bit, but let's just say they said, well, $50 an hour for our time. So if they spend 10 or 20 hours a month doing the program, they would just send an invoice saying we spent 20 hours of deputy review work this month, and then you can make the law enforcement agency whole from the collected fines that originally go to the school district per the law.
And I want to make sure, Bus Patrol does get money out of this. I want to be very transparent. So while like I said, state constitution, all fines and forfeitures come to the school district, we actually would contract with Bus Patrol, and we would pay them a subscription for this out of the fines. So that's why it would not take any money away from taxpayer-funded programs in our schools. Their fee would be paid from the fines we collected.
What is that fee? Does it have like a certain number, or does it differentiate just depending on what the fine is?
Yeah, no, we do I think it's $225 for every per bus per month. We're really not in the business of we don't want it even to be perceived like we're incentivized to issue more tickets to people. We just want to be kind of paid a flat fee for a service. We have a small variable based on, I believe it's citations paid or citations mailed. It's something like $50 or so for every commensurate with how many, because the processing work, the violation processing, the mailing, getting it paid, getting the citation heard in a local judicial setting is a lot of work for us. But so it's more or less $225 per bus per month, and then like a small variable for citations mailed and paid, something like $50. I'd have to double check the pricing for you.
I'm sorry. Yes, Mr. Rogers.
So I know you said too that if we did, start this partnership with you and everything and start going that route, that our county would also have to pass an ordinance for it. So can you speak to what that would have to be from the county level, I guess, or what possibly they might have to do at that level with it?
Yeah, believe it or not, the county, and this is again just all set in the state law, but the county, the Board of County Commissioners has to pass an ordinance. We've provided the county attorney and a few of the county commissioners with a draft of that ordinance, because there are a couple of other counties that are already doing this in North Carolina, so there's no use in like totally recreating the wheel. So they have that draft ordinance. The ordinance more or less has to say two things. One, we're authorizing the use of the school bus stop arm cameras within the county. And two, the state legislature many years ago did not want this to be kind of clogged in the traditional court system. So the county has to create what's called a non-judicial hearing panel, so to speak. So in the event someone says, hey, I don't feel like I did this, or I'd like to get a second opinion, I want a hearing, we will collect, if someone wants to contest, they'll tear off the coupon, and Bus Patrol will work directly with the county, and they more or less hire like a hearing officer, where you're not in a courtroom setting, but you have another person who probably is an attorney and could take a look at this and give it a second opinion and either affirm law enforcement's decision or overturn it. And the county has to create that through the ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Yep. And so I know it was saying that there will be a subscription cost, and there will possibly be a cost on sending out citations and everything. And then we also have the fines piece of it that will come back to the school system. But I guess also too, what is for the installation of these cameras and things, do we have any ideas on what that cost would be? Okay.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers, I like I said, I want to tell folks, because especially the public members that are here or watching online, I don't want anyone to look at this as a money-making opportunity for the school district. I think it's closer. I'll tell you, in the previous district, it was a break-even. Never cost the school district anything. But what we were getting was 4K cameras throughout the bus, inside and outside, basically millions of dollars of equipment. And so while, Bus Patrol does have a business model to not go broke, and hopefully probably even make some money, we understand that there's a cost to us from those fines. And so if someone's thinking, hey, we're going to go out and we're going to make $1 million a year off of this, that's not going to happen. I would dare say it'll be a break-even proposition. Bus Patrol may debate that and say we'll make a few bucks. I don't know, but I will tell you my previous experience, it was more break even, and that's good because that was cameras we didn't have to buy, and some technology within the bus we didn't have to buy, and immediate retrieval of videos, emergency situations that got first responders out there quicker. I can think of a situation where we had a bus tip over, and so it is about safety. The good thing is it doesn't cost the school district a penny, and I think that's the way to look at it. Not that it's going to make us money, but it's not going to cost us anything.
Yeah, I was more on what cost and everything on that part.
Yeah,
of it,
it will not cost us money, but and I say that, keep saying that, but also don't look at this as an additional revenue stream either.
Not looking at it at that at all. I'm looking more, like I said, at the cost, and then more on what it's really around on the safety piece of people not following those stop arms, and then also seeing your display on the cameras from the inside also too, thinking about talking to bus drivers and our bus coordinators. They're talking about some of the things that happens on the bus and stuff, and then sometimes I think some of our cameras might need work or it's not working and different things, so I was thinking about that also too.
Yeah, the good thing is the bus drivers can drive. They don't have to worry if they caught the license plate number or the color of the vehicle or the make of the vehicle. I mean, it captures it all. But also it has helped. I think the thing the bus drivers really loved about it is the fact that, one, they could get administrators could get instant video. But also, I think there were times where we may have had a parent, I know here we've had one or two already, that we've had a parent enter the bus upset or and it's all there. And those can be used as evidence if we ever need to, if someone gets arrested or whatever it may be. So the bus drivers feel very secure with the technology.
All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
One quick question on maintenance. I'm sure I know the answer. So you monitor, maintain the maintenance, would work schedule our director of transportation to come out and work on the buses, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yes, Dr. Parker.
Great. Just want to make sure I was next in line. I won't ask you to go through numbers, but if you have any information about accidents avoided or near misses or something like that where this shows an improvement, it would be great if you could send that to the board.
Yeah, I can get you some data on that. I mean, what I could tell you is we've got some pretty robust data on violation reduction. So it's been publicly reported across many of our programs that about 20 to 40% of the violations we see in year one are reduced year over year. So again, I'm not sitting here saying in 3 years no one will ever break this law, because people are moving into this county. There's a new crop of 16-year-olds who are learning to drive every year. The bus stops move. So it truly has to be a concerted effort between enforcement, continuous education, and really those targeted, I like to call it the 3 E's, enforcement, education, and engineering. Because why not think about redesigning a road? If a road is so dangerous that it is a risk to students, it's really incumbent on the community to think about what more can we do to make this area of the community safer? So 20 to 40% year-over-year reduction on average. This is what we're seeing on the roads. This is Pennsylvania, but just I like to show this example of what people say, well, like how many people were cited this year by traditional law enforcement. State of Pennsylvania a few years back has 30,000 school buses across the entire state. Across that time, in 1 year, 667 school bus passing citations were issued. We did a pilot program in Allentown, Pennsylvania. I don't know if anyone's ever been to Allentown before. It's a small city. Across just 47 school days, on just 2 school buses. And those 2 school buses captured 205 violations. So this is what's being captured by law enforcement given the constrained resources we have. We just don't have the officers to be able to follow 100 buses every day in communities all across the nation. But that's actually what the cameras are capturing in communities every day.
Great. So as a follow-up, so we have cameras in our schools, and they all go to servers that we own. Who owns the recordings? And what happens there? Because there's liability if we have a video of a student and it's released.
No, it's a great question. So this is always hashed out between the school board attorney and the county attorney and ours, but we have FERPA compliant, so no one's violating any state, local, or federal laws. The video actually sits on a DVR on the bus. So, and it's a 2 terabyte DVR, 16 channel, it's pretty heavy duty, and it more or less overwrites itself every 30 days. So long as you request the interior camera footage within that 30-day time period, you can retain that video. We do not own the video. It doesn't sit on like some bus patrol server. It literally sits on the bus. And the only time, remember I talked about remote video on-demand retrieval? Simply what that means is that we give you access to a web portal, your team, your transportation team. And if they want to request footage, they type into the portal. And that's when we're pulling that interior camera footage off the bus and transmitting it to you. So it's a pretty safe and secure process. The DVR is tamper-proof. It's under lock and key. Even kids are kicking the seat, they can't get into it or damage the DVR. And every once in a while, as Dr. Fleming alluded to, there are crimes committed on buses. Like sometimes really bad things happen on buses. So we work with local law enforcement on things like chain of custody, but it's all governed through all of those state, local, and federal student privacy laws. The stop arm camera footage is governed through the state law. So once someone is held accountable and pays their ticket, they call it final disposition. The stop arm camera footage has to be destroyed by state law as well.
Got it. And is your system, my understanding is, for it to count as a violation, you have to be moving people on and off the bus and the arm has to be correctly deployed. So are you interlocked to provide that information as far as having the arm out on the bus and then knowing that students are, whoever's getting on and off the bus?
Yeah, so there are a series of cameras on both sides of the bus. We do have a side load camera that captures students getting on and off as well. It's a little bit getting into the weeds, but so technically the state law says that the school bus needs to be used for the purpose of unloading or discharging, loading or discharging students. So it doesn't have to be that a student when that car passed, that a student was getting on or off in that very moment. What you really need to prove is that it was a valid school bus stop. Like usually what we'll do in the event someone, people come up with challenges in court all the time. So usually what we'll do is the last resort is to show videos of kids. We want to avoid that at all costs if we can. If someone presents a challenge and says this wasn't a real bus stop, we would have to show first an overlay of, well, this was a normal school bus stop route. Like this school bus stopped here 30 times in the last 30 days, I'm pretty sure it was a school bus stop. And then really what the judge applies is the preponderance of evidence standard. So I don't know if we have any attorneys on the board, but this is not like a criminal citation that you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Was it more likely than not that this car broke the law and that this was a school bus stop? So that's the evidentiary standard that the hearing officer apply. So that's really where that argument usually falls short if someone tries to say this wasn't a school bus stop.
Got it, but there is not an interlock as far as having the arm out. You just have pictures of it. Like you
We
don't
have a
any-
video as well. So we have synchronized video. So I have a still image of it, but basically what law enforcement sees is they have the front of the bus, they have both sides of the bus, and they have the back of the bus. So this, this is just a screen grab, but basically they can press play and they could watch what was happening around the entire bus to be able to make that informed decision about whether to issue someone a citation or not. So they're the ones relying on the video evidence to make that independent decision.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions from board members? Thank you so much for being here. Anything you want to add, Dr. Fleming?
No, I appreciate them being here, and we're obviously just presenting this as information. We plan on maybe having some more conversations with them and seeing where this goes. Ultimately, if we look at a contract with them, it would have to come back before the board. One thing I will say, too, I think is interesting, comparing to my previous experience with bus patrol and what that could look like here. I was amazed, which most of those were rural roads, and I think we probably were still getting 20 some violations a day, maybe something along those lines. And it would be interesting having more streets and stoplights and turn-in lanes and everything else, what that would be like here. But it certainly is a buzz in town when it happens. I can say that. People know to watch out. You see the box on the side of the bus. The bus does have stickers on it that say something like video recording is enforced or something. So it definitely starts a different kind of conversation in the county when it goes live.
You'd be surprised how many people say, I didn't see the bus. And you're like, well, that's interesting. It's large, it's yellow. I mean, what more should you do to the bus for it to be seen? Like, should we paint it neon pink? Because the school bus is uniquely, no vehicle on the road can be painted the color of the school bus. It has an arm sticking out, it has red flashing lights. I'm very passionate about this issue. So you'd be surprised when you launch this program how people start to pay attention to the bus. People start to say, wow, I do see the bus now. So, and that's really the goal of the program, is to create more mindful drivers. It can wait, right? 30 seconds, a minute, it might be a little inconvenient. You might be thinking about something else or late for the meeting, but nothing is more important than that child's life getting on and off the school bus safely. I'm going to leave just some cards. It has my cell and my email. If you or your staffs have follow-up questions, I'll just leave this up here. Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. We will look forward to having more discussion about that in the future. At this time, I will invite Ms. Yolanda Anderson, our Chief Human Resources Officer, to the podium for our next two agenda items.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Fleming. Before you today, I have a new policy. It's the dual employment policy. If you will recall, back in January 2025, we discussed looking at a potential dual employment policy. So before you today is a draft. This is for information only. So at this time, I wanted to ask the board if there were any questions about the draft policy that is before you.
Questions from board members?
So Ms. Anderson, I know this came up at a previous board meeting.
Yes, sir.
At that point, I don't think it was as much laid out at that time, but I was looking over some of the things under the policy regulations, I guess, and thinking about some of those exemptions and those pieces and people who might be exceptions to possibly being a 10-month employee and being the requirement of driving a bus. Because I know in some roles, like an example, some of our school nutrition folks are possibly people who are retired people or folks who, I mean, they, you know, of course, they do their limited driving on what they do. So then thinking about them in that aspect. And then I guess also, I know we're trying our best to figure out ways on getting more and more bus drivers.
Right.
Because We hear about the bus driver shortage. It's not just an Alamance County thing, the state of North Carolina, it's nationwide. So I was wondering about some of that pieces of it as far as those employees. And I know there's things in there that's saying how the superintendent or a person who is designated can look at those exceptions and make people exempt from it. So I guess I'm just thinking on what might be some of those outlayers that is possibly not laid out in there too that could be looked at.
So whenever you're looking at a dual employment policy, we try to identify as much as we can here in black and white, Mr. Rogers. However, you will have incidents that may not be captured here, and that's why we wanted to put the caveat that if we did have an employee that had a medical condition, that they would be able to submit a request for like a temporary waiver from the dual employment policy. If that were the case, we have in our district a leave coordinator, so that individual would work with that staff member, be able to provide the medical documentation to support the possible exemption, and then myself or whoever Dr. Fleming designates, we would look through that and then work to offer that exemption for that employee. Sometimes that exemption could be seen as something that's temporary. It just depends on the medical condition of the employee, and sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So it just depends on if someone were to, become ill, we certainly would want to work with that staff member because that's beyond their control. So we would certainly take those things into consideration. And as you mentioned, with our transportation needs, we still have currently, as of yesterday, 32 bus vacancies. And so I wanted to make the board aware of that we are still struggling in that area. We have a total of 145 buses. 131 are our regular buses, and we have 14 EC buses. Currently, we have, and I can get you a copy of this as well, we have 71 regular drivers, 27 certified staff who are assisting us, 11 teacher assistants, and then we also have a data manager, support from technology. So we have a plethora of different employees already helping. So our goal is to ensure that every day our students are able to get to school on time because they're missing breakfast, they're missing instruction, but then also that after school piece. And so the purpose of this policy, which is the draft, is for members of the board to really look closely at what we've identified, and then for you to tell us, remove this, or can we consider something else?
Thank you for all of that information, Ms. Anderson, especially breaking out who's actually right now helping in those pieces. Thinking about the process of becoming the actual bus driver, I know I've heard from some folks that sometimes when they're applying to when trying to get that CDL and I guess getting that either that classroom or that drive time, some of that is a longer process. So how would that look for a person who we would consider as that 10-month employee on that dual employment? Like, what does that time frame look like for them if they're hired for that, but they're supposed to be this dual employee? How I guess does that work for them being able to have that CDL to drive a bus versus they might be starting on their actual in-school job, what they're doing daily as far as in school?
Right. So as far as that piece goes, we would have to be in close communications with our transportation department because there are certain times where classes are being offered. And so we would have to coordinate with transportation during that time frame in the sample regulations. You will see a section that states that during that time, those individuals would be paid so that they are not missing out on pay. Also, Mr. Rogers, we did include in here that we're looking at some reimbursement costs for these individuals. So ultimately, when it comes to the dual employment, it's up to us in HR to work in tangent with our transportation department to ensure that they have an updated list of who the dual employment individuals are, and for us to make sure that we define what that timeline needs to look like. And what we've presented today, you will see that we have listed that the individual would have 6 months to satisfy these requirements. However, we are certainly willing to do what is the pleasure of the board in regarding that, just depending on if you feel that that individual would need more time or less time. But again, this would be a collaboratively effort to ensure that the individual is getting the supports that they need in order to meet this requirement, but also being able to fulfill their other duties.
Thank you. That's all I have for right now.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Other questions from board members? Dr. Parker?
Are there other nearby counties that do this? I guess as far as, I didn't know if you had any information that you can.
Yes, so I have been in contact with the School Boards Association, and they actually provided for me, Dr. Parker, a quite extensive list of districts who actually have a dual employment policy. They didn't provide me every district because the list was that great. So this is something that is customary in a lot of our districts, even our neighboring districts. So this is something that is seen throughout, I would say, North Carolina. I can provide for you separately the ones that I did receive, but again, that was not an exhaustive list.
Yes, Dr. Fleming.
I do want to share that aside from Dr. Parker's comments, it is a majority by far of school districts. And so I know we've had conversations with some school district staff, members of leadership in other places about how this would work. I can assure you this works everywhere. There's no reason for us to be an exception, I guess, because I know there's been some concerns, especially with child nutrition and some others. These are all difficult to staff positions. It doesn't matter if you have to drive a bus or not, they're still tough to fill. And what this does is takes from the same pool of individuals, but by adding this bus driver responsibility to them is really able, you hear about, kind of killing two birds with one stone. That's almost what this is the best way I can describe it.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. And I think Dr. Parker had one more question.
Yeah, so I guess my one other question is, so an employee who falls under this policy would need to get a CDL within a certain period of time. There are times during the year where the school system basically runs out of money, and I don't know, as far as matching some of that up, that if someone's not, on the kind of the higher end of a pay scale, and we say, well, you have to get a CDL. I actually don't know how much it costs, and if it's a big burden or a small burden or something like that. But I would just think, if I were someone, I wouldn't want to have to wait until the next school year or when we get the next increment of funding for that, just from a so as it's being, I guess once everyone has a CDL, it doesn't matter, but maybe as it's being implemented, I don't know if there's a way just to make sure that we don't create an economic hardship for those folks who are kind of having to catch up with the new policy if it's passed.
That makes sense, sir. And again, that's something that we can discuss with transportation as a part of a procedure. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Yep, no other questions.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. One of the questions that I've been asked kind of consistently is, how does this impact current employees? You can just touch on that a little bit.
Yes, so when it comes to current employees, that will be a decision from our superintendent. He will be able to make that decision on whether or not current employees would be pretty much grandfathered in, or if he feels that current employees would need to meet this requirement. Dr. Fleming, I'll lend it to you.
Yeah, we need to look at our staffing levels at that point to see where we're at. I do believe in certain circumstances there may be able to be, and I hate to use the word exemption, but there may be a situation, and one that comes to mind, instead of driving a bus, they could become a bus monitor. Instead of driving a bus, maybe there's some sub work they could do, whatever it may be, outside of actually driving the bus. But we would have those conversations individually between the principal and that employee, because we don't want folks to, we realize they've been dedicated, they haven't had this responsibility. We don't want them to feel like they're no longer valued because of the change in policy, but also there's a balance again of having enough bus drivers. And so we would work individually with existing employees on that.
Do you foresee, and this is for you, Ms. Anderson or for Dr. Fleming, impact on other departments? I know that's one of the things we've heard about, like with school nutrition. What is that impact if they've already got vacancies? Is this going to create more vacancies or employees who choose to leave to avoid having to do the dual employment? Any thoughts on that?
In my previous district, we had similar policy, and we had staff members who would sign and agree that they would, abide by the dual employment policy. With anything, you're going to have staff that may naturally leave, but I have not seen it at an influx that it caused a hardship. Dr. Fleming, I don't know if you have anything
Yeah, I think there's a
additional.
fear that this is going to do something that, again, has not really affected any other school district, and I don't see where we're any different than that. Do I think there may be folks that would have applied for the job? You've got to drive a bus, so I may not be interested. Sure, you're going to have that. But we have to remember we already have vacancies without having to drive a bus. So I would rather have the same number of vacancies with individuals getting hired that can drive a bus because, again, you're filling 2 jobs and having maybe 1 vacant instead of having 2 jobs vacant. So, I think over time it auto corrects itself a bit.
Thank you both for addressing that. Any other questions from board members? Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
Wagner?
So part of our policy is to reimburse these individuals for the cost of the CDL, is that correct?
Yes,
And we're
sir.
talking about a Class B, not Class A.
Yes.
I think it's Class B is what's required. Correct. So if that individual obtains a Class B driver's license and they decide to leave the district, we're out of the money, correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
The good news is Class Bs used to be a 6-year renewal, I think 6 years, and now it's 2 or 3. Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Rogers.
And so with any of these employees who would fall into this dual enrollment is, I guess we don't have to talk about specific numbers, but would it be a difference in their pay because now they are a dual role employee or dual employed employee, I guess?
Like their pay?
Yes.
So they would be serving as for instance, example, an IA, but then also they would be serving either as a full-time driver or a substitute driver. So they would clock out of that primary position and then they would clock in for the secondary role that they're serving in.
Any other questions from board members? All righty. And this will be back on our agenda, I'm assuming at some point for more conversation.
Yes, Madam Chair. I would like this to get passed sooner than later. We may take another month just to work through some of the details, but the next time you see it would probably be for action. And we would not put it on consent because I know there's been a lot of conversation. We would put it as a regular agenda item where it can then be discussed before being voted on.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. Yes, Mr. Wagner?
Your conversation with your colleagues, could you ask the question of the attrition rate once those individuals obtain that Class B driver's license? Just
I can ask. I did not ask that.
great, thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you.
Next, I'm here for Title IX. So, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Fleming, if you will recall, the federal court struck down the 2024 Title IX regulations nationwide and vacated them effectively and reverted back to the 22 regulations. And so before you today, I do have the 2020 Title IX regulations to share with you, as we do need to revert back to those regulations. And one area, and Adam, please correct me if I'm wrong, but one area that is not listed under the 22 dealt with pregnant students. And while those aspects are still important, that was not necessarily a focus for accommodations. Anything additional there, Adam?
No, I think that's accurate. And we've had a number of discussions about Title IX, and this is simply responding to the court decision that invalidated the 2024 regulations and that puts back in place the 2020 regulations.
So, Adam and Ms. Anderson, so it's basically, we're just going back to the policy that we had before that 2024.
Correct.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
So as the chief summarizer in chief, I feel like I need to kind of go back over this one time as far as just to understand. So we had the 2020 rules and we had a policy based on that. And then there was discussion for 2024. We passed a policy there. Then the rules invalidated. And at that time, we effectively were back on the 2020 rules, and now we're making it official by changing the policy.
That's it.
I got it. And then the two cases that we're frequently asked about, so sports, that's still covered by state law as far as.
Yeah, the Fairness in Women's Sports Act, correct.
Okay, and we're still governed by the Grimm case regarding bathroom access.
Correct
That's
again.
correct.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Any questions or comments for Ms. Anderson or Mr. Mitchell? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
At this time, before we move on with the agenda, Dr. Fleming has asked if it is the pleasure of the board if we could potentially amend the agenda to add a number 4. Is that agreeable, Mr. Mitchell, to entertain an amendment at this time?
For low wealth funding. To add what?
Dr. Fleming would like to add an agenda item number 4 to talk about low wealth funding.
Let me quickly look at your policy on sometimes there are different rules between amending at the beginning
Absolutely.
of the meeting and during the meeting, so I just want to make sure we follow the right procedure. Just
Thank you for
give me
that.
this. So yes, it can, but it would require a 2/3 vote. That's the difference. If it's done at the beginning of the meeting, like while the agenda is being approved, it's just a majority vote. After the meeting starts, it would require a 2/3 vote.
Okay. So Dr. Fleming has asked that the board consider an amendment to the agenda to add number 4, low wealth funding. Anything you want to add on that agenda topic, just for the topic?
Yeah, just it's to discuss our low wealth allotment for the upcoming school year. Mr. Messer and I have some items to share.
Okay. Any questions from the board? Is there a motion to amend?
Motion to amend, add item C4, discussion of low wealth supplement.
Thank you, Dr. Park. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, 6-0. At this time, I will invite Mr. Messer to the podium to, and Dr. Fleming for this agenda topic.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the board. I apologize. I should have done this at the beginning of the meeting, and it completely slipped my mind, like a few things today have. So, Mr. Messer is going to share some information with you regarding our low wealth funding. It's not good news. Unfortunately, it's nothing that we can fix. Previously, of course, low wealth funding comes to school districts that have that are classified as low wealth based on property taxes. Typically, when there's a value reval done, the local government, county commissioners would then kind of fund that gap. In theory, when reval, of course, across North Carolina happens, typically the county gets, quote, richer. I don't think richer is the right word, but becomes less low wealth. And so you see a reduction in low wealth funds. Because of our last reval, we really got hit around not quite 50%. I don't believe, Mr. Messer, is it 45%?
That's somewhere around 45%.
So around 45%. So I want him to talk a little bit about low wealth. We're going from roughly 12 million down to 6. maybe not quite that drastic. But Mr. Messer, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent. But right here, I was in Raleigh on Friday, and they were handing out our planning allotments. And there were a couple of districts that had significant swings in their low wealth funding from the current year that we are in to the 25-26 school year. And due to the revaluations of property, you can see that currently we are funded at 10.5 million on low wealth funding of PRC 031. PRC 031 is our low wealth funding. That we're going to go down to $5.8 million. So that's a significant change of $4.7 million swing in 1 year. And I mean, basically, really what the state is saying is that the reevaluation that the county did should supply revenue to make up the difference in which the state provided funding for this year. Meaning that, for lack of a better term, Alamance County is less low wealth than it was the previous year. Basically, whenever you have a reevaluation and you leave your effective tax rate the same, situations like this happen. Basically, I'm paraphrasing, but the expectation is whenever you raise your property values, tax rates will kind of seemingly go along with it to a certain extent. But when that doesn't happen, then the state of North Carolina says, well, we're not going to give you this money anymore since the county is a lot more capable of funding the school district on an operational level. I mean, that's kind of breaking it down to I guess, simple terms. It's a very complicated calculation, which in the years I've been doing this, I'm not fully understanding the entire calculation of it myself. But that's just, that breaks down the difference in the funding from 1 year to the next.
Thank you, Fred. Yeah, I said
Sure.
12 to 6. It's actually 10 to 5. So in essence, we're looking at about a $4.5 million cut in state funding next year.
That's correct.
Nothing this board could do, and quite frankly, we can't stop Alamance County's property values from going up. That's a trend across growing counties across the state. So there are other counties, Johnston, Union, others that were getting hit pretty hard too.
Gaston County lost every bit of theirs, but
That's right. Yeah,
200,000.
Gaston is no longer low wealth at all.
That's correct.
And so. Really nothing we can do about that. One option we could do, and I am not at all recommending this, is we go back, we amend our budget request to the county commissioners and add $4.5 million in. I'm not at all suggesting that, and probably would ask you to not go that route, and I can assure you the county commissioners would not want us to do that either. But I do think where we are at in the conversations Mr. Messer and I have had on the budgeting side of things, what we have to do is really, again, advocate and talk to our commissioners, our policymakers, both state and both state and local level. The $5 million increase in current expense, we have got to get that. It's imperative, because that will at least, it won't get us ahead, but at least it'll help fill that gap in. And so that $5 million in current expense, that is imperative that we get that from our commissioners this spring, because
We just found this out on Friday.
Right.
When this was
this was not something we were holding on to. That's why I wanted to make sure we mentioned it today instead of waiting to another meeting. And so that's where I'm at with it. I don't think we need to go back and amend our budget request. We will do what we need to do in trying to fill the gap, try to meet the gap. But the $5 million, that is imperative now, because it's ironic that the number is as close as it is. And then that doesn't get us ahead. That just helps us out, in the sense that the county is, quote, less low wealth than it was a year ago.
As Alamance County continues to grow and people continue to move into the area, this source of funding is going to continue to decrease each year.
I have a quick question, Mr. Messer. When you're looking at the definition of PRC 31, and it talks about enhancing the instructional program and student achievement, what kinds of things is that $10 million routine, or the low wealth funding, what is it typically spent on? Like, what's that impact that we're going to see?
Yeah, currently we pay extra classroom teachers out of that. We do not have any state technology money to pay for technology employees, so we pay the majority of our technology employees out of low wealth funding. We pay some administrators, meaning that we pay APs. Those are the only administrators. We're allowed to give extra assistant principals to schools with that money if we choose to do so. It's basically an open chart. You just can't pay superintendents, senior leadership, those types of principals out of that, because principals have their own separate allotment. We have additional instructional support personnel paid out of there as well. And that's a funding source where we're allowed to move locally paid employees to being state paid employees. Those districts that do not receive low wealth funding, their technology folks are paid out of local money as well, as an example.
Other questions from board members?
And just to reiterate this, so this was decided from the state based off of the reevaluation, and it's dealing just strictly off of the property reevaluations. Is not taking into account any of actual economic, socioeconomic statuses or anything of the communities.
No, that's basically the majority of it is dealing with the reval of the property. If you keep the tax rate at the same level from year to year, but your property values are going up, you inherently are going to increase your revenue at the county level. And what the state is saying is, since the county's getting more revenue, then they're in a position to fund the school district at a higher level.
All right, thank you, Mr.
It's almost like a maintenance of effort.
Yep, pretty much.
That as the county becomes wealthier in land, they have to maintain local funding of schools. And as the property value goes up and property tax incrementally goes up, that's how they make up the difference. And based on this very complicated formula that I would need the School of Government to come here and probably explain, it's built in a way that we shouldn't feel the $5 million cut because we're funded at such a level that the county can make up that difference with no problem. Now, I'm not going to speak for the county if they can or not, but I can tell you that, just like Mr. Messer said, we will eventually no longer be a low wealth county, and we will receive no money on that line. Because, like I said, every year a county or two kind of comes off of it. And they're the growing counties.
There's something else that's also could be in danger with that as well, is that the $3 million that we receive for the low wealth teacher supplement that we give out every December, as the county continues to grow in that capacity, that money will go away as well. When we were in that room on Friday, there were 4 districts that were notified that they were not going to get that teacher supplement next year as well.
Yeah, I know we're kind of barely holding on to that one right now.
Yeah, the state of North Carolina is in a transition, and meaning that a lot of people are moving to the state in general, and property values are going up across the state everywhere. So that's why we're seeing these wide ranges of fluctuation, of funding fluctuations from district to district, from year to year.
And Mr. Messner, what did you say the difference is now from what it is currently and what it's going to be in next school year?
$4.7 million decrease.
Any other questions or comments from board members?
I know this is going to be part of the budget discussion on some level, but I didn't know if you had any initial thoughts about how this might be addressed, or kind of a general strategy, or maybe you're still thinking about it. Maybe as far as just any comments.
Yeah, I think, again, if we can get the local current expense expansion request that we requested, I think it will make it a lot easier. Now, I will tell you what this does slow down. We have been trying to put the assistant principals back into schools that were previously cut. A significant portion of them come out of low wealth money. I wanted to get either for our technology department, either additional technology staff or instructional technology facilitators or some type of a lead teacher like we had before, instructional coaches, whatever we may call them. A lot of that is going to have to slow down until we can get our finger kind of on the pulse of what a $5 million cut. Now, when you look at what the last couple of years have done, we cut so much, we were to a point that we could survive, and then we started ramping back up, and then we get this news, and we're like safe where we're at. But man, wouldn't it be great for the rest of really the high schools to get all their APs back? We're about halfway through that process. Wouldn't it be great for us to have media coordinators back? Wouldn't it be great for us to have instructional coaches back? And I had a goal by the end of this school year to not be at 100%, but to be further than we're going to be now. We're like I said, with the APs, I think we got to Southeast and we quit. With the other, I think there's 3 or 4 more high schools. 3 maybe more high schools that we wanted to reinstate their last cut AP. We're going to put a kind of hold on that at the moment. And then also taking a look again at these other instructional support positions. So it's not the end of the world at this very second, but again, we're really relying on that $5 million expansion from the local level to help us.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Thank you, Mr. Messer. Thank you, Dr. Fleming. Oh,
If
yes,
I can
sir.
share one more thing.
Absolutely.
Now there is one that I don't see this happening. So it's one of those you're saying there's a chance. It's a very slim chance. If our legislature does amend the formula, because what you have to remember is what a poor county was 25, 30 years ago with this allotment formula is a little different than today. I don't think any of us, I think Alamance County is light years ahead of where we were 25 years ago economically, but it's still different. We're still not a rich county. And so maybe that formula needs to be tweaked. I did share that. I've only shared that so far with Senator Galey, because she had reached out to some of her central staff there and Senate staff to look into this a bit. But that's really the only thing is it's either on the county or the state changing the formula. And I just don't see the state changing the formula, because it's not that there's a lot of counties dropping off of it. You might have 1 or 2 a year, but they're growing counties. A lot of people may not represent growing counties. So, or they may not have understanding a low wealth formula. So unfortunately, I think the burden of this will fall on the county.
Thank you, Mr. Messer. Thank you, Dr. Fleming. At this time, it's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Julie Turner, Executive Director of Elementary Education, to the podium.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Fleming. Before you this afternoon is an approval request for a Capturing Kids' Hearts training contract for the 25-26 school year. Kind of the purpose and the goal of this training is to create a welcoming environment in our schools where students would feel safe, respected, and engaged, to decrease discipline referrals and ultimately improve student behavior, and then increase academic performance and overall school climate. So approval is requested for a contract with Capturing Kids' Hearts to provide training to 4 elementary schools, that's 2 non-Title I and 2 Title I schools, during the 25-26 school year, at a total cost of $165,500. Funding for the 4 schools would be in partnership through a grant offered to us from the Capturing Kids' Hearts Foundation in the amount of $23,000, and district curriculum and instructional funds that we have to spend this year. The need for this initiative has been identified by school principals who have recognized a significant increase in behavioral challenges within their schools. And by adopting Capturing Kids' Hearts processes, the schools will foster a relationship-driven culture which enhances student connectiveness. I have a few slides to share with you, just a little bit about Capturing Kids' Hearts. Their mission, you will see in this next slide. If you have a child's heart, you have a child's mind. Their mission is to win students' hearts first and then lead students to their personal academic best. On this next slide, you kind of see the Capturing Kids' Hearts really gives teachers processes. It equips them with processes, and there are kind of three things that come out of that. That first one is really the teacher-student relationship and helps teachers build that. The second one is the high-performing teams is student to student in the classroom. And what we are seeing is that's difficult for students to be able to have healthy relationships with each other. And then finally, if you have those first two, then you've built that relationship-driven culture I spoke about, which really impacts the school community. So this next slide shows some national school data. 17% of the schools that implemented saw higher student connection, 40% growth in pro-social skills of students, 11% increase in test scores, 22% reduction in discipline referrals, 2.2% growth in enrollment, and then 18% higher teacher retention. So we have two schools who are currently implementing these processes. Both have been in full transparency, near and dear to my heart. And so we've seen similar data. This next slide, with permission, asks Turrentine to kind of share some of their discipline data as they are in year 2 of implementation. And so what I would just call your attention to is the yellow bar there was the first year, the green bar is the second year, and of course the red bar was the year before implementation. So you can see that they are seeing a decrease in their discipline incidents, and I believe that when you see a decrease in discipline incidents, you see an increase in student achievement. And so you can see more of the totals there as well. This next slide is schools that implemented were recognized as National Showcase schools. Smith has embraced this to such a degree that they were recognized 2 years in a row as a National Showcase school. Schools receive this recognition because they've seen, their data shows measurable improvements in one of the following areas: attendance, academic performance, discipline. And so this is some data from schools like Smith. So 90% of National Showcase schools, the campuses say, teachers there say they belong at those campuses. 91% of the families on those campuses say the school cares for their child, in comparison with 67% of parents nationwide. 90% of educators at those schools would describe their campus as relational, and then 96% of educators plan to apply what they learn in training immediately to their classrooms when they go back. So that's some data from schools that look similar to Smith. And finally, the last slide is just what they provide, what Capturing Kids' Hearts provides us through this contract. I will say 100% of their trainers and their strategists are former or current educators who've implemented Capturing Kids' Hearts. So we believe this approach will lead to positive and lasting impact for our school communities. What does the contract cover? It covers 2 full days of training for each school, access to CCH resources, the support of a CCH strategist who will assist the schools implementing Capturing Kids' Hearts, and then monthly leadership support for the principals to help guide them in the implementation of this as well. So we believe this partnership would be a critical step towards addressing some of the behavioral challenges that are currently facing our schools and create an environment that's conducive to student growth and success. During the end of our budget reviews, we have identified an opportunity to utilize remaining federal funds. So again, with your approval, we would propose expanding this opportunity and offering the opportunity to pilot this at some of our other Title I schools who do indicate an interest in this initiative. So in conclusion, I'm seeking approval for this contract for the 25-26 school year with the addition of some other schools should there be interest.
Thank you, Dr. Turner. Questions or comments from the board members?
If Dr. Turner is looking for a vote today, do we need to amend the agenda?
No.
No, just informational today.
Just informational, and it'll be on the consent
Yes.
agenda.
Down the path.
Consent agenda for our evening meeting.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Great question.
So there's a history of using this program in the district already. You said it's Smith. I didn't know if you had any additional.
Smith and Turndon are currently implementing.
Got it. And then it would be paid for by, you said Title I funds, or what would be the source of federal funding?
Dr. Dixon, so for this contract, for these 4 schools, it is through a grant provided to us by CKH Foundation in the amount of $23,000, and then our curriculum and instructional funds that we have to spend this year. If we move forward with interest from other Title I schools, then we would use federal dollars, and Dr. Dixon could speak to that more specifically.
Actually, if you could very briefly, that would be great.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Fleming. To answer your question, one of the things that I do as a general practice, every Monday morning I review all federal budgets to see where there are negatives, where we may have some carryover, and align the budgets to incorporate what we need to do to cover the negatives or if there's going to be any carryover. So when you get to the end of a school year, I'm looking at how much may be carried over. And so when we're talking about the potential to use Title I funds, which to answer your question, it would be Title I funds, we have some funds that will likely be carried over or are remaining due to a variety of vacancies, for example. If you think about one position when you are calculating the salary plus benefits, that one person's position could be upwards of $100,000. If you've not filled that vacancy, and it's going to remain on the budget line because you're thinking that you are going to, then you get to the end of the year when the spend deadline occurs. If you don't spend that money, then you would carry it over. So what I've done is I reached out to Dr. Fleming, I reached out to Dr. Morton, I've reached out to Dr. Turner, because we want to try to maximize any funding that we have available to see if there was any way that we could potentially use it in this school year. And I actually came from a district where they implemented capturing kids' hearts in all Title I schools. So when I heard this come up in a meeting that I was attending, I offered it as a possibility that we could use any remaining funds that we might have available to expand it to include some additional Title I schools.
Got it. So the 23K is from a grant from the CKH Foundation, and the rest of it is from leftover or unexpended Title I funds?
Potentially, yes.
Potentially, got it. And the Title I funds, if they were earmarked for a position that maybe wasn't filled, I guess I'll just ask the question. One of the questions that, as far as if this is for curriculum or if this is for other things, is that being looked at kind of holistically as far as at the schools? And so I didn't know if this was a, something that, I guess how I put it, this is really a one-year pilot to see if it's beneficial. I guess, is that how I should understand it? Or is it is this an ongoing expense that we should think about? I guess it's easier for me to think we're going to try this for a year and see if it helps, kind of thing. I didn't know if you had comments about the way you saw things now.
Yes, and so that is why I asked Dr. Turner to use the term pilot specifically, because that's what this is. There are a couple of things that you have to consider when you are talking about using district level funds for any type of Title I initiative. One is I have to ask principals whether or not this would be something that they would be interested in doing, because whenever you're expending district-wide funds, you have to have buy-in from Title I principals. So we did send out a survey to determine if Title I principals would be interested, and we got some responses where there were principals that said, yes, they are interested in it. So initially, what we would be doing is piloting it out of the funds that would likely be carried over. Should this be something that we found to be effective and we had data to support continued use, then what we would do is continue year after year to survey Title I principals to determine if they wanted this to continue to be a district-wide initiative, and then we could continue to fund it if that's the way we want it to go. We do have a Title I school turn-time that currently uses school-based Title I funds to fund this initiative. So we have a couple of options. And that would just be determined based off of the results from the pilot, whether or not we wanted it to become a continuous district-wide initiative, or if we wanted to just pilot it and then have schools make the decision if they wanted to use their school-based Title I funds to continue it.
Got it, thank you. I don't have any other funding questions. I had a couple of other things. I don't know if other people had funding questions while Dr. Dixon was here.
Okay. Do you want to, Mr. Engel ask a question, then you have some other follow-up for Dr. Dixon outside of Caring Hearts.
The questions about the program more so than the specific, the funding.
Okay.
So I was going to see if there are any other funding questions.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Mr. Engel.
Thank you. So the lap salaries in the program that you talked about, the lap salaries, what you're doing is taking them and using them for Title I initiative program. Is that pretty correct?
Yes, sir. And in summary, yes, to quickly summarize it. So what happens is at the beginning of the funding year, when I submit the federal application, we have positions that are earmarked for use out of Title I funds. If they do not get filled, because I don't know at what point in the school year they're going to be filled, the money stays in that budget, and so it doesn't get used. But that's part of why I monitor the budget every Monday morning, because I need to look at trends and make sure that we don't hit the spend deadline and I haven't spent the money. And so the spend deadline is coming up, and so that's why I reached out to the several people that I mentioned to find out whether or not there were initiatives that would improve student achievement and stay aligned to the purposes of Title I funds that we could use. So what I would do is a budget amendment to move the funds from the salary lines to a contracted services line to cover the costs should we move forward with this.
And the key is it's got to stay within the program, either one way or the other, per approval of the folks you call.
This is an allowable Title I expenditure. I think that may be what you're asking. So yes, I am allowed to.
I had a reason for asking that.
Yes, I am allowed to move the money from the salary lines that were not filled into a contracted services line, because the purpose of this is to improve school climate, which would in effect improve or should have an effect on effective instruction and closing the student achievement gap, which is the purpose of Title I funding.
Thank you.
I actually do have one more funding question. I'm so sorry. So I'm not as acquainted with the rules for what funds can be carried over for Title I. Could these be carried over into the next year and partially support a position or something, or is it really we need to expend it by, I don't know, the end of August or something like that? I guess yeah, that's the question. Could these be carried over, or does it need to be encumbered sooner rather than later?
So they can be carried over. That is allowable, and you actually want to carry funds over because you want to have access to funds at the start of the school year, because the federal fiscal year ends September 30th. So we do not technically receive a new federal allotment that can be used until October 1st. And so what you do is you carry funds over so you can allocate funds out to schools, you can continue to function with salaries for federal programs, a variety of different things. The key is the amount that you're carrying over. If you carry over more than 15%, then you have to ask DPI for a waiver, because you are not supposed to carry over more than 15%. You can do that, and there are situations where a waiver is appropriate, But ideally, you'd like to expend the funds within the fiscal year that you have them, but it is allowable to carry them over. So should we not move forward with this, then we would carry them over, and then the determination would be made if we reallocate that out to schools or a different district initiative.
Okay, thank you. That really is the last this time.
Sure, okay. Any other questions or comments from board members? Hearing none? Okay.
This is not this is not a finance question, so I'll just go ahead and ask it.
Thank you,
I
Dr.
thought
Dixon.
We were switching from finance to other.
We were kind of tag teaming.
So-
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. So this is for Dr. Turner?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so just to understand as far as, so this is a curriculum that's proposed for a couple of schools, for 4 schools, and it was chosen by the principals and the, what is the phrase at the school? It's not the cabinet, the leadership team, thank you. The leadership team as far as for those schools, as far as the,
So definitely one of our criteria was principals who indicated an interest. So conversations that I've had with principals that are seeking help with kind of core behavior across their building. And then we also took into account the cost with the number of teachers at each school and made sure that we were choosing 4 schools that allowed us to maximize the funds that we do have available. But definitely, I think to lead an initiative like this, I think it's important to have principals who see a need and want to try this initiative.
absolutely. And I guess that my second question is, so the training days, that's for all teachers or everyone at the school?
Yeah, it's actually for, it will be for all certified and classified staff in the building, even including your financial secretary, people who are at the front desk greeting families, because it is a process, right, that you want to see implemented across the school community.
And so this is additional training days and not replacing other state mandated training days or anything like that? The principal has to
Yes.
sell?
Yes.
Do additional training before the school year starts, or how?
So we have some options. That's kind of our next step with approval. We will begin to look at what days do we have available. I mean, as a principal, I have used the required work days at the beginning of the year that were school designated, so I was able to use those for training. Another option would be to train them, before they return. Again, a lot of that will kind of depend on once we get approval and talking to principals, and I think it's important to do what kind of works best for their schools.
Yeah, so the principal will be in charge of finding the time to do the training?
Yes, I'll definitely work with them on that.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
sir.
Thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Dr. Turner.
Thank you.
At this time, I will invite Dr. Denise Morton. No? Yes? I think I have you down as field. Do I not have her down as field trips? My apologies, Dr. Morton. I'm told you're up anyway. It's our pleasure to welcome her first trip to the podium, I believe, at a board meeting.
Not my first trip. I've been here many times before in the past. But we do have a couple field trips that we'd like the board to consider giving approval to. One is for E.M. Yoder, seeking approval to go to Washington, D.C. in next March of 2026. And then our Career Technical Education organization is going to go to the national competition in Orlando, Florida. So any questions on that? And usually the schools either have some money that they ask the students to pay or have money for students that can't pay. And of course, CTE usually has funds that they use to go to these things.
Thank you, Dr. Morton. Questions or comments from the board?
Motion to approve field trips as presented?
It'll actually be on the consent agenda.
Sorry, I was trying
But
to
good
think about
try.
I have a lot of time, yep.
So these will be on our consent agenda at our evening meeting. Yes, sir. We're only trying to put voting action if it is time sensitive at our work sessions.
Got it. I'll
Any
adjust
questions or comments for Dr. Morton? All right, thank you so much.
And now that Dr. Morton's with us, we will let her know what to speak on.
And now I'll welcome Dr. Christy Davis, Chief Student Services Officer to the podium. And I believe you've got the next 4 agenda items.
Yes, I do. So the first thing that I have is conflict of interest training. So the 2023 state budget, which became effective on October 3rd, includes a new requirement in section 7.41 that requires all school employees that are making or administrating of contracts to receive a minimum of 2 hours of conflict of interest training. Per our board policy, 7730, employee conflict of interest, requires the board to approve a qualified source to provide this training. We are looking at the administration, we're recommending the training be provided by the North Carolina Association of School Administration. It's a virtual training that all of our principals would have access to, and they could complete it online and receive a certificate, and we would take up those certificates knowing that they've completed it.
Questions or comments from board members?
Dr. Davis, with this being a requirement, is there a certain time frame they would have to have it completed by?
Do we know, Adam?
Let me take a look at that real quick. I think it may be addressed in the statute. I can report back if I don't want to hold you all up.
All right, yeah, just let us know on that, Adam.
Sure.
Because since it is saying that it is a required thing for them to do that 2 hours, just wondering what time frame that is for them to have it done.
And since this is an information item, we can bring it back and for the evening meeting.
I may give me a sec. I think I've got. So, a new employee that would be covered by the training shall complete it within 90 days of assuming their role. Thereafter, it's once in every odd number year.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Any other questions or comments from the board members? Thank you, Dr. Davis.
And so next we have 2 policies. The first one, I'm going to invite my colleague, Ms. Yolanda Anderson. She's going to discuss the first policy that we have.
Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Fleming, before you, we have policy 4201-7271, injury and loss prevention. In the policy, it does note that an accident investigation protocol or an improvement of an existing protocol should be implemented within this policy. So if you'll notice the highlighted yellow section here, investigations will also require that employees be screened for intoxicating beverages or controlled substances as allowed under North Carolina General Statute 9712. So currently, we do not have the highlighted section in our policy, and this deals with staff members who may be injured here on one of our facilities and workman's comp. And so we would like to add the caveat that an employee go to be tested at Coronado Clinic just to confirm whether or not there is any beverages or any drugs in their system. Coronado Clinic has shared with us that the alcohol test results would be available immediately, and of course for any drug testing that would take a couple of days. I have consulted with Mr. Messer and also Jacob Accountants. That would not be an additional cost, Mr. Messer, to the district. Is that correct?
That's correct. The underwriter will cover the cost of this.
Any questions for me regarding this highlighted section in yellow?
I mean, actually, we're putting all of our insurances out for bid, and the underwriters are asking for this to be included before they put a bid on our workers' comp.
Any questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Mr. Messer and Mr. Countess thank you, Mr. Countess, as well for your work with that.
And so the next one, since the second one that's beside it goes with the first one that Ms. Anderson spoke to, is the emergency administration of naloxone, which is also known as the brand name of Narcan. This was a board policy that was originally, it was not presented, but it was made available by the School Board Association last spring. And at that time, during our conversations with the health department, we were not ready to bring it forward. So at this time, we are ready to bring this policy forward. So it is a new policy that addresses the use of naloxone in emergency situations in schools to prevent opioid overdose deaths. Do you have any questions?
Questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Dr. Davis.
So next, I have 4 grants. Joe Machoto from Western Alamance High School received a Career and Technical Education Grant for Agriculture administered by North Carolina Future Farmers of America in the amount of $53,823.25. The Eastern Alamance High School baseball team received a grant from the North Carolina Youth Outdoor Engagement Commission in the amount of $4,400. Jeremiah Neal from Hawfields Middle School received a grant from Treliant FCU Foundation in the amount of $4,800. And lastly, we have Greta Reynolds from South Mebane Elementary School received a $400 grant from Donors Choose. And that's a total for the grants for this month, $63,423.25.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. Questions or comments from the board? Thank you.
And next, we have 5 gifts. Holy Comforter Church has donated $1,225 to Newland Elementary School to support students and staff. They will be used to support students with the PBIS systems and teacher appreciation activities. The second gift, Conklin Oil and Propane, has donated $1,200 to Cummings High School. Funds will be used for the upcoming senior trip. James McClure has donated $5,200 to Cummings High School. Funds will also be used for the upcoming senior trip. And lastly, Grand Raven Incorporated has donated $1,200 to Cummings that will also be used to fund the upcoming senior trip. And then lastly, we have the Henry A. Scott and Margaret W. Scott families have donated $25,000 to the Henry A. and Margaret W. Scott Media Center at Southeast Alamance High School. The Media Center gift was from multiple members of the extended Henry A. Scott and Margaret W. Scott families. Funds will be used to purchase materials for the Media Center. So that is a total of $33,825.
Questions or comments for Dr. Davis?
Just a comment around the gifts. Just thankful for all of the folks who send in gifts to our schools, especially for that senior trip for Cummings High School, because I know there was plenty of people that I saw through social media that was talking about that trip for Cummings and wanting to help donate for those kids to be able to have that great senior trip. So thankful for everybody who did that and everything, and just always just thankful for the gifts that our schools get.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, Dr. Davis. You will see grants and gifts at the evening meeting for approval. And this time I will invite Mr. Greg Hook to the podium, our Chief Operations Officer.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Fleming, today I have 7 items, the first of which is a voting item, and then the remaining 6 are for information that I wish to place on the consent agenda at the next meeting. The first item is time sensitive. We need to increase the amount of our service contract for HVAC repair work orders by $75,000. This amendment of $75,000 will take the total value of the contract to $249,999. These dollars are used for HVAC repairs that are to the extent that we can't handle them in-house.
Thank you, Mr. Hook. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Hook, what is the change difference? Like, why is the 75,000 getting added?
We've used all the funds or have encumbered all the funds that were in the prior amount, and we have repairs on the table that need to be completed now. Okay. What we're finding, Mr. Rogers, because we've we've rightfully gone into these preventive maintenance contracts for roofs and HVAC. We're finding lots of things that should have been found a long time ago, and we need to correct those so that we improve the longevity of the systems that we have now. So the repairs are very, very expensive, especially when they're repairs around a chiller.
Thank you, Mr. Hook.
We are going to vote on this if there's no other comments or questions from the board because of the sensitive nature of timing on this particular issue. Dr. Parker, I'll give you the honors since you've been trying hard today.
Motion to approve contract as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, gentlemen. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 6-0.
Thank you. The next item I have is a service contract with Pace Analytical. This contract I bring to you yearly in advance of the upcoming school year. Pace Analytical performs the wastewater monitoring at schools with wastewater treatment facilities and drinking well water system monitoring with the schools that have wells. The amount of the contract is $225,000, and that contract will begin July 1st, 2025.
Any questions or comments on this particular contract? If not, we will see this on the consent agenda. Consent agenda later this month. Thank you, Mr. Hook.
The next item I have for you is a service contract with Republic Services. This is for our trash and recycling services at all of our school system sites. The amount of the contract is for $250,000, and this contract would begin July 1st, 2025.
Questions or comments on this particular contract?
Mr. Hook, this is who we currently are using?
Yes, sir. This company is the company we currently use. An RFP was done for this service 3 years ago, and the way the RFP was written is we could add 2 additional one-year contract years. Republic Services has agreed to hold the amount of the contract to the original first 3 years, so there's no price increase.
Any other questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Dr. Hook.
The next item I have for you, I brought this in 2 prior years. Board approval is required if we're going to allow another entity to use our white activity buses. So Burlington Parks and Recreation and Parks has requested the use of 5 activity buses to use for their summer day camp and Camp Greenleaves in summer of 2025. I have the dates here for you, and they will pay $2.50 per mile and use their own drivers.
Questions or comments for Mr. Hook on the annual contract for the city of Burlington?
So the $250 per mile, my memory is that is just the fully loaded cost as far as, operating the buses and that kind of thing. Is it the same basically that we use internally as far as a figure, or what is the?
No, it's a little more. This would take care of anything with regards to repairs or just maintenance, like oil, filters, and so on.
Fuel and things like that as well. Fuels.
Yes, it doesn't cover damage. The leaser would pay for any damage. We wouldn't expect damage. We've never had damage. But for incidentals like oil and upkeep of the buses.
All right, got it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hook.
The next item I have for you is the renewal of the MFM custodial contract for July 1st. 2025 through June 30th of 2026. The amount of the contract is $5,670,735.90.
Comments or questions from the board?
Share something on that, Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to let the board know this is a 1-year renewal. And in this upcoming year, we do intend on looking at opening bids for a new custodial service contract. I've been pretty open on the fact that I'm not real pleased with our current services, but also I know we can afford our current services. So it does appear that when we do bid this out, if we go with another company, or even if we stay where we're at, we know we'll be paying more with inflation and just everything else. But also, I do believe you get what you pay for, and that's probably proof right now. But
any questions or comments beyond? Thank you, Mr. Hook.
All right, the next item I have for you is an addendum to the HVAC chiller preventative maintenance contract. At the time we put this contract in place, we didn't realize in my department that it did not include tax. So we're going back and doing a amendment to the existing contract to make sure we're covering the tax dollars that will be invoiced for as they complete these preventative maintenance projects throughout the district. So the addendum is in the amount of $6,600. It brings the total value of the preventative maintenance contract for chillers to $104,263.
Questions, comments from board members? Thank you, Mr. Hook.
The last item I have for you is the lottery application for debt service payment. The Board of Education in June of 2019 agreed to use lottery funds for annual debt service, and the Board of Commissioners also agreed to that. So this will be, I think, the 6th year of making this payment from lottery funds.
Okay. Any questions or comments from board members? Thank you, Mr. Hook. So those last 6 items, you will see those again on consent agenda at our evening meeting. Thank you, sir. I believe at this time, Vice Chairman has a motion for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair and Board, I make a motion that we enter into closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A3 to preserve attorney-client privilege, North Carolina General Statute 143-318.11A6 to consider confidential personnel information protected under North Carolina General Statute 115C-319 and 115C-321.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Any conversation? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0. We will move into closed session at this time. We are back in open session. It is my pleasure to welcome Chief Human Resources Officer, Ms. Yolanda Anderson, to the podium.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Fleming, I'm asking that you approve the amended personnel report as presented in closed session.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
Motion to approve amended personnel report as presented.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Harvey. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Is there any other business before the board this afternoon?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Dr. Parker. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Engel. Any discussion? Hearing none, those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously 5-0. We wish you a wonderful spring break next week, and we will see you at the end of the month.